Imagine waking up to news so shocking it feels like the very ground has shifted beneath your feet. It's January 3rd, 2026, and the headline the world thought was impossible is now flashing on every single screen. Nicolas Maduro has been captured. But as the chaotic images of the lightning strike in Caracas flood your feed, you might get a strange, nagging sense of déjà vu. It's that feeling like you've seen this exact movie before, but you can't quite place where or when. We've all felt that frustration, haven't we? That sinking feeling that the world is just a mess of unpredictable chaos, where those in power seem untouchable and we are just helpless spectators to the madness. It's a specific kind of pain, watching history move in circles while everyone else acts like it's all brand new. But what if the world isn't as chaotic as it looks? What if there's a secret cheat code to understanding these massive shifts in power? Today, my friend, I'm going to reveal the missing piece of the puzzle. We are going to pull back the heavy curtain on the Noriega Trap. I'm going to show you how a secret military blueprint from 1989, a plan many thought was buried in the past, was just used as the lethal manual for the most daring mission of 2026. You know, this isn't just a story about a dictator's fall, it's about learning to see the hidden patterns that govern our world, so you'll never be surprised by the news again. So, just imagine the hot, humid air of Panama City back in 1989. A man named Manuel Noriega thought he was truly untouchable. He held the nation in a grip of absolute and cold fear. Noriega believed his secrets made him a permanent king there. But in Washington, a very different script was being written. The United States military was preparing a strike called Operation Just Cause. This wasn't just a military move, it was a total decapitation. The goal was to remove the head of the entire snake. Noriega, like many before him, ignored every single warning sign. He felt the Americans were too soft to actually come for him. He spent his nights in luxury while the shadows were moving. A secret blueprint for his capture was already nearing completion. The strike, when it finally came, was loud, fast, and lethal. Thousands of elite troops landed in the dark of the night. Noriega realized far too late that the game was officially over. He was hunted through the streets until he had nowhere left. The world watched as a powerful dictator became, well, just a tired prisoner. It was honestly a masterclass in how to topple a modern strongman. That 1989 manual was filed away in a very dark cabinet. Most people thought it would never be needed or used again. But, you know, military history has a way of repeating its best moves. The tactics used to trap Noriega were far from being forgotten. They were carefully preserved, just waiting for the right moment to return. And, you know, 37 years later, the ghost of 1989 has reappeared. Nicolas Maduro sat in Caracas, believing he was the new exception. He watched the history books but thought he was far smarter. He surrounded himself with iron walls and a loyal private guard. To him, the capture of Noriega was just an ancient, dusty story. He felt that in the year 2026, the world was far too complex now. He believed he could hide behind a mask of political survival. He looked at the modern world and saw only a deep hesitation. Maduro felt that the American giant had finally lost its teeth. He mocked the warnings and the sanctions with a defiant smile. In his mind, he was the master of his own dark destiny. He didn't realize that his pride was his biggest silent enemy. He was following the exact same path that Noriega once walked. His inner circle whispered that he was truly and totally safe. They told him that no one would dare to enter Caracas. They built a house of cards and called it a solid fortress. Maduro feasted while the people outside suffered in the dark. It's the classic delusion of every dictator throughout our long history. They think they are different until the very first door breaks. The signs were all there, but he chose to ignore them. Intelligence reports were dismissed as mere empty and weak threats. He was blinded by the very power he worked to keep. Maduro was living in a dream world of his own making. He never imagined that a decades-old plan was being polished now. The trap was being set, and he was walking right into it. The original plan from 1989 was built on 3 lethal pillars. First, you must cut off the leader's ability to communicate. A dictator without a voice is, well, a man without any power. Second, you must paralyze his elite guards in their own barracks. Third, you must create a vacuum that he cannot escape from. This was the Noriega Trap, and honestly, it was terrifyingly effective then. The United States planners in 2026 didn't need to invent something new. They simply took the old blueprint and, you know, added modern digital tools. They knew that the psychology of a cornered man never changes. Noriega fled to a church hoping for a miracle or maybe mercy. The plan for Maduro, well, it assumed he would do something very similar. It focused on making every single exit feel like a dead end. It's a fascinating study in how military strategy remains truly eternal. While technology evolves, the human heart, it remains exactly the same. Fear, pride, and isolation are the tools used to break kings. The 1989 manual understood that a leader's ego is, well, his cage. By exploiting Maduro's arrogance, they made him vulnerable and weak. The blueprint was a ghost, just waiting to become a very real nightmare. The world's eyes were on the diplomacy, but the soldiers waited. They practiced the Noriega Maneuver until it was a reflex now. They knew that once the first shot was fired, speed was life. The secret was in the timing and the absolute total shock. Maduro was being watched by eyes he could never actually see. The blueprint was now a living thing, ready for the strike. On the morning of January 3rd, the silence was finally broken. A series of precision strikes hit the heart of the capital. The power grid flickered and died, leaving Maduro in the dark. Communication lines were cut before he could even call for help. It was, a mirror image of the night Noriega lost his nation. The Noriega Trap had been sprung with a terrifying modern force. Elite units moved through the streets of Caracas like dark shadows. They didn't waste time on the regular soldiers in the city. They went straight for the heart, just like they did before. The presidential palace was surrounded in a matter of a few minutes. Maduro's elite guard found themselves paralyzed by a superior, lethal force. The script from 1989 was being played out with perfect precision. There was no grand battle, only a sudden and total collapse. Maduro realized in that instant that his iron walls were paper. He tried to flee, but every single path was already blocked. He was caught in a vacuum of his own making that morning. There was no grand battle, only a sudden and total collapse. Maduro realized in that instant that his iron walls were paper. He tried to flee, but every single path was already blocked. He was caught in a vacuum of his own making that morning. The world watched the images of the capture with absolute shock. It was the same look that Noriega had on his tired face. The lightning strike was over before the sun was fully up. A man who ruled a nation was now just a common prisoner. The repetition of history was so perfect it felt almost scripted. The Noriega Trap had claimed another victim in the high stakes. Caracas was a city transformed by a single, bold military move. The parallels were so deep they defied any kind of coincidence. Military generals are often accused of fighting the last big war, but in this case, they were brilliant to look backward first. A decapitation strike is a very specific and dangerous military art. It requires more than just bombs. It requires a deep intuition. The high command knew that Maduro followed the Noriega psychological profile. They knew that if they took his voice, he would crumble. Why go back to a manual that is nearly 40 years old? Because the architecture of a dictatorship hasn't changed much at all. They all rely on a cult of personality and fear. If you destroy the cult, the entire system falls apart instantly. The U.S. High Command trusted the old wisdom over the new. They used the past as a weapon to secure the future world. It really shows a deep respect for the lessons of the previous generation. The generals of 1989, well, they left behind a gift for the future. They proved that a small elite force can in fact topple a giant. The 2026 operation was honestly a tribute to that original, bold vision. It was, in a way, a strategic recycling of a plan that had worked before, and it proved, once again, that a masterwork of strategy never truly goes out of style. The world is now analyzing every single second of the Caracas operation, and, yeah, they're seeing the DNA of the Panama invasion in every move. It's a reminder really that the best plans are often the simplest ones. The Decapitation Strike is now considered the gold standard for high command. It avoids a long war and goes straight for the final result. Maduro was, you could say, the latest test subject for a very old theory. It's a reminder that the best plans are often the simplest ones. The so-called Decapitation Strike is now considered the gold standard for high command. It avoids a long war and, well, goes straight for the final result. Maduro was, in a way, the latest test subject for a very old theory. Noriega died in a prison, a man pretty much forgotten by the world. Maduro now faces a very similar and honestly incredibly lonely dark path. The strong man's fall is always a sudden and a very steep one. One day they are gods, and the next they are ghosts. The transition from a palace to a cell is, without a doubt, a brutal one. It is the shared fate of those who just refuse to hear history. The tragedy is that it was all so incredibly and sadly predictable. The Noriega Trap was a warning that Maduro chose to ignore. He thought he was the master, but, honestly, he was just a student. Now he sits in the silence of his new and narrow world. He has plenty of time to study the man he finally mirrored. The exile of the soul. Well, it's the most painful part of all. We see the images of the capture and, yeah, we feel the weight. It's a reminder of how quickly the world can actually turn. The people of Venezuela are looking toward a new, bright day. But for Maduro, the sun is set on his long, dark reign. He is now just another name in the list of fallen men. The trap has closed and the door is locked from outside. History doesn't offer a second chance to those who fail it. The fall of the strongman, it's a lesson for every future leader. You cannot build a house on the suffering of your people. Eventually the wind will blow and the house will surely fall. Noriega and Maduro are now bound together by their shared defeat. The Noriega Trap has become their final and most lasting legacy. We look at these events and we wonder if we've learned. Is history truly just a circle that repeats its dark moves? The Noriega Trap proves that we are often doomed to repeat. We make the same mistakes and we fall for same plans. A dictator rises, he falls, and a new one takes place. But the truth is that the plan for freedom remains same. The final revelation is that a leader's soul is his destiny. If you lead with fear, you will eventually die in fear. A dictator rises, he falls, and a new one takes place. But the truth is that the plan for freedom remains the same. The final revelation is that a leader's soul is his destiny. If you lead with fear, you will eventually die in fear. The United States military didn't just use a plan, they used truth. They used the truth that no one is above the natural law. The 1989 blueprint worked because it was built on human nature. And, human nature is the one thing that never truly changes. We must look behind the curtain to see the real patterns. The capture of Maduro was not an accident of the year. It was a deliberate echo of a past that we ignored. The wise man looks at 1989 to understand the year 2026. The secrets are all there, just waiting for someone to finally read. To be free, you must first understand the traps of the past. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world's dark secrets. The Noriega Trap is a haunting reminder of our shared long history. The world moves on, but the ghosts of the past stay. They watch us and they wait for the next strongman's fall. Thank you for spending your time with a friend like me. Until the next revelation, keep looking for the hidden rare truths. It is truly a sobering thought, isn't it? To realize that a plan drafted in a smoke-filled room in the late 80s just changed the entire map of South America in 2026. It proves that while our technology leaps forward, the dark dance between power and ego remains exactly the same. We like to think we are living in a brand new world, but the Noriega Trap reminds us that history is a circle, and those who don't study the shadows of the past are doomed to be caught by them in the light of today. But now, my friend, I'm incredibly curious to hear where your mind is after seeing this revelation. Do you think the United States was right to recycle a decades-old military blueprint to take down a modern leader, or should history be left in the past? Was Maduro's fall a necessary move for global stability, or was it a dangerous echo of a type of intervention we should have outgrown by now? And here is the real question that keeps me up at night. If the Noriega Trap worked so perfectly here, which untouchable leader do you think is next on the list? I want to get into the nitty-gritty of this with you, so drop a comment below and let's start a conversation that goes deeper than the headlines. If you felt that spark of discovery today, that feeling of finally seeing the hidden patterns behind the chaos, then don't let this be our last secret. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell right now. We are uncovering the rare truths and the buried manuals that the mainstream media is simply too busy to notice. Thank you for spending your time with a friend like me today. It is a privilege to share these truths with you. Until the next revelation, keep your eyes on the patterns.